Hey everyone, and welcome to the Louisiana Department of Education Division of Nutrition Supports training on civil rights and child nutrition programs. We'll cover this in the training, but you probably know this is a training that is required annually. And since this year started on July 1st, this training will count toward your annual requirement. So thank you for being here for this. One quick announcement before we get started. Um, Beginning July 29th, the Zoom link for the meetings will be posted on the Louisiana Fit Kids calendar on the website. So you won't be receiving a meeting reminder the day of the meeting. You will instead be able to go to the calendar, click on the date in the training, and the Zoom link will be there, which will be a really nice feature for you all. All right, so let's jump in. So the purpose of civil rights trainings is to inform, educate, and support all staff that interact with child nutrition programs. This training will cover USDA civil rights requirements, staff responsibilities, and resources and information available to assist staff in carrying out their civil rights responsibilities. First, we'll discuss the public notification system. This is the process by which SFAs notify potential applicants of the availability of meals. Second, we'll discuss civil rights issues related to customer service practice. This could occur anywhere in the continuum of participation, from applicants turning in free and reduced price applications to overt identification of meal status in the lunch line. Third, we'll cover the requirement to collect race and ethnicity data and why that information is collected. Fourth, we'll briefly touch on issues of accommodating children with special dietary needs. This isn't a complete special dietary needs presentation, but we will cover the topic from the lens of ensuring equal access. Fifth, we'll discuss what an SFA should do if they receive a complaint alleging discrimination in the school nutrition program from a student or a parent. Then we'll discuss what an SFA should do if there are areas of noncompliance and how to handle reporting of compliance issues. And then finally, we'll discuss language assistance requirements. So there's a number of civil rights laws pertinent to child nutrition programs. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. And then the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibit discrimination based on sex under any education program or activity that's receiving federal financial assistance. Even $1 of federal assistance brings the entire scope of federal child nutrition requirements into play. And then we have Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This prohibits discrimination based on disability. Additional civil rights laws include the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. This prohibits discrimination based on disability in all services, programs, and activities provided to the public by state and local governments, except public transportation services. And then the Americans with Disabilities Act of 2008, or the ADAAA. This was followed by the Age Discrimination Act of 1975. This prohibits discrimination based on age in programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. And then the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987. This prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. Here are some other resources and authorities on civil rights in child nutrition programs. I'll draw your attention to FNS Instruction 113-1, which is entitled Civil Rights Compliance and Enforcement, Nutrition Programs and Activities. This guidance covers the scope of civil rights laws in child nutrition programs. Discrimination is defined as different treatment, which makes a distinction of one person or group. This can be intentionally, by neglect, or by actions or lack of actions based on the protected classes. Examples of discrimination include giving one group or type of participants larger or extra helpings of food, such as giving boys more food than girls, separating genders, failing to provide children with a dietary disability and accommodating meal, or failing to provide program information to all potential program applicants. Protected classes, excuse me, protected classes in the child nutrition program are race, age, color, sex, national origin, and disability. This means that an alleged discrimination complaint will pertain to one of these areas. Civil rights training is required annually for all staff. This includes full-time staff, part-time staff, temporary staff, central office and site staff, and volunteers. Documentation for civil rights training must be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. Documentation must include sign-in sheets, agendas, and dates and times of training. All civil rights trainings should be tracked on a training tracker tool, such as USDA's Professional Standards Training Tracker or on Louisiana Fit Kids. Civil rights training subject matter must include the following: the collection and use of data, effective public notification systems, complaint procedures, compliance review techniques, resolution of noncompliance, requirements for accommodations of persons with disabilities, requirements for language assistance, conflict resolution, and customer service. All FNS assistance programs must include a public notification system. The purpose of public notification is to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of the program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the policy of non-discrimination, and the procedure for filing a complaint. Through public outreach, SFAs are trying to ensure program access to as many potential participants as possible. Public notification must include information regarding eligibility, benefits and services, program availability, such as hours and locations, applicant rights and responsibilities, procedures for filing a complaint, non-discrimination policies, and any program changes. Schools must notify the public annually of their participation in the program. Notification to applicants and participants must include information regarding program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the procedures for filing a complaint, and the policy of non-discrimination. The public notification system must include the following elements. Number one, the public release. Schools must take specific actions to inform the public of their program rights and responsibilities and the steps necessary for participation in the program. Number two, display the "And Justice for All" poster. Schools must display the "And Justice for All" poster in the correct size, which is 11 inches by 17 inches, in a prominent location where it's visible to all participants in the program. The poster provides the USDA address and phone numbers that the public can use to file a complaint if they think their civil rights have been violated. Applicants and participants must be advised of their right to file a discrimination complaint, how to file a complaint, and of the complaint procedures. Number three, the non-discrimination statement. All informational materials, including websites used by schools to inform the public about FNS programs, must contain the non-discrimination statement. Public notification can include methods such as internet and computer-based applications, the newspaper, radio or television, letters, leaflets or brochures, or bulletins. And be sure to convey the message of equal opportunity in photos and other graphics that are used to promote program information to applicants or participants. The media release must be provided at or near the beginning of the school year to the local news media, the unemployment office, and to any major employers contemplating layoffs in the area. The media release must include the eligibility criteria for free and reduced meal prices. Or for CEP schools, the media release should inform the public that school meals will be free to all enrolled students. This is also applicable for schools participating in SSO of this year. It's at the discretion of the media if they decide to publish the media release or not. Another method of public notification is informational letters that inform households of program availability. Informational letters must be distributed by schools at the beginning of the school year by mail, email, or in person. Letters cannot be sent at the end of the school year for the upcoming school year. They must be sent after July 1st, preferably near the start of the new school year. All SFAs must prominently display the USDA non-discrimination poster and Justice for All. Posters should be displayed in each school and in a location that's easily visible to the students and to the public in the food service area. If you are in need of posters, please contact the state agency. The USDA non-discrimination statement must be included on all forms of communication and program materials. Program materials include all public information and education. The long version of the non-discrimination statement is required on documents pertaining to student eligibility, such as prototypes of letters to the households, verification, and direct certification. The long version of the non-discrimination statement should also be used whenever possible or where space permits. The short version of the non-discrimination statement can be used if the document's too small and there's limited space, such as on menus or nutrition flyers. If using the short version of the non-discrimination statement, a 9-point font is required. And this is a reminder that both the long version and the short versions must be used word for word. So when it says, this institution is an equal opportunity provider, it should read just like that. You don't need to replace this institution with the name of your institution. Leave it as is. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. This is the long version of the non-discrimination statement. The state agency does keep this long statement on the home page of the CNP website. And here it is in Spanish. Additional languages are available on the FNS website. There's a couple of requirements when printing the non-discrimination statement. The first printing requirement is that the wording for either statement cannot be changed. The state agency has encountered situations where SFAs have tried to change the word sex to gender in the non-discrimination statement. USDA is emphatic that no word should be altered, changed, added, or removed from the statement. The second printing requirement is that the print size cannot be smaller than the text of the material. Also note that in auditory presentations, such as public service announcements, the shortened version may also be used, but the long version is required on any vital documents, even if it's only 1 page long. The non-discrimination statement is required on any materials that mention the program to the public. These materials may include advertisements, publications, letters, enrollment forms, broadcasts, school websites, etc. Items that do not require the non-discrimination statement to be printed are incentive items, such as cups, buttons, magnets, or pens, due to the impractical size. Customer service is defined as effectively communicating with customers, responding to the customer's needs, valuing the customer's worth, and instilling excellence through courtesy, confidence, and enthusiasm. Treating customers with respect and dignity through excellent customer service saves you time and minimizes opportunities for complaints and angry customers. All students must be allowed equal opportunities to participate in the child nutrition programs, regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. All participants of the child nutrition program must be treated equitably. In order to reduce the risk of a civil rights discrimination complaint, ask yourself the following questions each time a participant comes to your program for services. Number one, am I treating this person in the same manner that I treat others? Number two, have I given this person the opportunity to ask questions? Number three, have I provided the person with the information he or she needs to make necessary decisions? During meal service, all students within the same grade grouping must be offered the same menu selection regardless of their eligibility, sex, national origin, race, color, age, or disability. All varieties and selections must be made available to all students within the same grade grouping. In the examples provided, it would be discrimination to provide high school football players with bigger scoops of food or to save certain food items for a specific group of students. USDA policy prohibits the denial of meals as a disciplinary action against any student who is enrolled in a school that participates in a child nutrition program. It also prohibits requiring a child to work for or earn their meal. Identifying information must not be used for any purpose other than determining and verifying eligibility for free or reduced price meals. Overt identification should be considered in different situations beyond the application process. This includes at the point of service where other students may see eligibility statuses on the cashier computer screen, or for example, when special functions take place that require alternate meal service types, such as field trips and class parties. In these instances, no overt identification of meal status should occur. In no way is an SFA to impede with a customer's right to file a civil rights complaint. However, most conflicts are easily resolved by using appropriate tools. Conflict resolution consists of useful skills to assist with the solution of complaints. These skills include using a win-win approach. You can change the conflict from an attack and defense to cooperation and avoid the desire to blame. You could try using a creative response. Turn problems into possibilities to improve the situation. You could demonstrate empathy. Help others feel that they are understood by being an active listener. Assert appropriate assertiveness. State your case without arousing the defenses of another person. Remember to use I statements to communicate your feelings directly. Manage emotions. Stick strictly to the facts of the complaint and communicate your feelings directly. Or you could have a willingness to resolve. Identify the barriers to a resolution and overcome those barriers. Avoid repeating the situation. If the complainant persists with their complaint, direct them to file their complaint with USDA's Office of Civil Rights. Limited English proficiency, or LEP, are those individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English. SFAs must take reasonable steps to assure meaningful access to the information and services they provide to individuals with LEP. Reasonable steps would include an evaluation of the following factors. The number or proportion of LEP people eligible to be served or likely to be encountered by the program, the frequency with which LEP individuals come in contact with the program, the nature and importance of the program, activity, or service provided by the program to people's lives, the resources that are available, and the cost to provide those services. A shortage of resources or anticipated costs to provide these services to individuals with LEP does not eliminate the requirement to do so. SFAs must explore the most cost-effective means of delivering services and information to people with LEP. All child nutrition program information should be provided in the necessary language for all participants and their families. For example, Enrollment forms, menus, brochures, and letters should be provided in the necessary language for all participants and their families. Language interpreters can be helpful when dealing with someone with limited English proficiency. Volunteers may be used, but they should understand the ethics required when using an interpreter. For example, a Spanish teacher could assist a household in completing a meal application, but would need to be trained on the importance of keeping all information confidential. Also, children should not be used as interpreters. All schools that participate in a USDA child nutrition program must have a system to collect the racial and ethnic data of program participants in accordance with FNS Instruction 113-1. This data is used to determine the state's compliance with federal civil rights laws. USDA regulations state that respect for individual dignity should guide the process and methods for collecting data on race and ethnicity. Therefore, self-identification or self-reporting is the preferred method of obtaining characteristic data. The collection of this information is strictly for statistical reporting requirements and has no effect on the determination of their eligibility to receive program benefits. This data must be maintained in a confidential file for 3 years plus the current year, and this information should be restricted to authorized school personnel and other authorized state and federal personnel when requested. Racial and ethnicity data is used to determine how effectively your program is reaching potentially eligible children and where outreach may be needed. Ethnicity is broken down into 2 categories: Hispanic or Latino, and non-Hispanic or non-Latino. The racial categories include American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, and white. A person may identify as belonging to multiple racial categories, but will only belong to one ethnicity. Next, let's discuss accommodating persons with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations refer to ensuring that participants with a disability have physical access to programs and services, such as easily accessible entrances and restrooms. A school is required to provide food substitutions or modifications for a student with a dietary disability. A written medical statement completed and signed by a licensed physician, advanced practice nurse with prescriptive authority, or physician assistant is required to be on file when the request falls outside of the meal pattern. Meal pattern modifications within the meal pattern do not require a medical statement. Meal pattern modifications outside of the meal pattern do require a medical statement provided by a licensed medical provider. Again, a licensed medical provider includes a medical doctor, a physician's assistant, or a nurse practitioner. The medical statement must include information about the child's impairment and how it restricts the diet, an explanation of what must be done to accommodate the disability, and the foods to be omitted and the recommended alternatives. If the medical statement does not fully explain the modification needed, the SFA should contact the guardian for additional information. As a reminder, receipt of clarification should not delay the modified diet. Applicants and participants must be advised of their right to file a complaint, of how to file a complaint, and of complaint procedures. The LDOE recently underwent a civil rights management evaluation by USDA. From that, several changes resulted in the processes the state agency and SFA will use to adhere to these standards. The first is a new prototype form entitled Civil Rights Complaint Procedures for Child Nutrition Programs. The second is a new USDA discrimination complaint form. These are found in SFS memos 21-120 and 21-121. They discuss each of these forms in more detail. When filled out, the civil rights complaint procedures will provide the SFA with the procedures for handling any civil rights complaint that may arise. The form must be completed and kept on file by the SFA, but the state agency does not need to receive a copy. Any person who believes they've been discriminated against based on protected classes, which again are national origin, race, sex, color, age, or disability, has a right to file a complaint within 180 days of the alleged discriminatory action. This is the new version of the discrimination complaint form. It and the procedure on the previous slide can both be found on the CNP website. I gave you the memo numbers on the last slide, and now I'll give you the directions. Go to the home page and click on Memos and Resources. Then you'll click on School Food Service. On page 1, you can look under the subheading of Civil Rights, and there you'll find both forms. This USDA discrimination complaint form must be available at all sites participating in child nutrition programs. When an individual wants to report a discrimination complaint, child nutrition staff should have as little involvement as possible with the complaint process. All staff must be trained on the civil rights and this civil rights complaint form. Complaints may be written, verbal, or observed. A complaint may also be anonymous. Anonymous complaints should be handled in the same way as any other complaint. If the complaint is verbal and the person alleging discrimination is not inclined to put the allegation in writing, the person to whom the complaint was made must write up the complaint on behalf of the complainant. The first step is to document the complaint and make an effort to obtain the following information: the name, address, and phone number of the complainant, the specific name and location of the entity delivering the benefit or service, the nature of the incident, action, or method of administration that led the complainant to feel discriminated against, the basis on which the complainant feels discrimination exists, such as race, color, national origin, sex, or disability, the names, titles, business addresses, and phone numbers of persons who may have knowledge of the discriminatory action or actions, and the date or dates during which the alleged discriminatory actions occurred, or if continuing, the duration of such actions. All complaints should then be forwarded directly to USDA. The second step for civil rights complaints is to contact USDA. All verbal or written complaints must be forwarded to the Civil Rights Division of USDA Food and Nutrition Services within 3 days of receiving a complaint. The third step in civil rights complaints is to maintain documentation. All civil rights documentation should be kept at the central location and should be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. A few civil rights reminders include: number 1, the USDA regional office is responsible for the review of the state agency. From there, the state agencies are responsible for the review of the school food service authorities. State agencies must report any significant civil rights findings to USDA, and SFAs must receive pre-approval visit to ensure compliance with civil rights before receiving federal funds. Compliance is assessed through the administrative review. If non-compliance is indicated, a corrective action plan must be implemented to achieve voluntary compliance within 60 days. The corrective action plan should describe the agency's actions to be taken to resolve the non-compliance determined. If the corrective action is not achieved within 60 days, suspension of assistance or termination may result. Here's your checklist for civil rights compliance. Civil rights written policy and complaint log should be kept. Train all staff and all volunteers annually. All staff should know the CMP civil rights policy, prominently display the And Justice for All poster, collect and keep racial and ethnic data, keep all records for 3 years plus the current year, maintain civil rights complaint procedures and forms, place non-discrimination statement on all printed materials mentioning child nutrition programs. As a reminder, district policies regarding civil rights complaints should specify how civil rights compliance is handled for CNP separate from other programs. This is where the completion and use of the civil rights complaint procedure for CNPs is documented and utilized. Here you have some resources. Start thinking about what questions you have. You can enter them in the chat box, but I'm going to repeat the announcement that we started off with at the beginning of the presentation. Please note that starting on July 29th, the Zoom link will be posted on the Louisiana Fit Kids calendar on the website. So at that point, you won't be receiving a meeting reminder the day of the meeting. You can go to the calendar, click on the date and the training that you are wanting to attend, and the Zoom link will be there if you don't download it when you register. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about this presentation? I'll give one more minute for questions to come in. All right, well, if you have any questions, you can always contact the LDOE Division of Nutrition Support. You can call our main number 225-342-9661, or you can send us an email at childnutritionprograms@la.gov. Thank you so much for being with us today. We will get this presentation posted in the next few days, both the recording and the slides, so you can share with your staff. But we thank you for being with us today, and thank you for all that you do for your communities.